Let's bring in Dan Ives, Global Head of Technology Research at Wedbush. Dan, you've been listening to the president's press conference, and I'm wondering, as an analyst who covers a lot of these names, at what point do you start actually modeling in? Do you wait until there are contracts, or do you acknowledge that there is some sort of expectation and therefore you get excited alongside? You know, we saw the stock react in the late afternoon.
Yeah, look, Melissa, I think it's something you're going to have to start to model in. I mean, not just for names like Oracle, but especially when it comes to any of these sort of data center innovation plays, the Palantirs, Microsoft, and others. And I think now it's a question of the multiplier effect and how quick this is going to happen. But we're seeing this off to a fast start, and everything we're seeing in the Beltway, this is going to be just really, really positive for more of the data center players, from Microsoft, for Amazon, for Google, and of course for Oracle.
Hey, Dan, it's Dan. You know, when you think about some of these numbers being thrown around, there's no specifics here. You know, Microsoft gave some CapEx guidance, I want to say a few weeks ago. They kind of guided to maybe $80 billion in the next year or so. 40 of that was going to be overseas. Don't you get to a point where you can only build so much data center infrastructure here in the U.S., especially for these big multinationals who have to serve other places around the world? And the last part of this question is, and what about power consumption? Like, at some point, there's only so much data centers you can build in the near term because you are power constrained.
Yeah, Dan, I mean, you hit on a great point, because the reality is we could talk about these CapEx numbers, but it's about you need the grid, you need the energy, and we could talk about nuclear and other names like ACO and, you know, and others. But if you look on the data center side, I mean, there's essentially going to be more data centers under construction than actual data centers. But now how quickly that gets built, and especially when we'll see it in earnings, but for Microsoft, for Amazon, for Google, the CapEx is there. But now it's about monetizing and how quick. That's what the street's going to be focused on for the next 2, 3, 4 quarters.
Dan, it's Tim. So let's do that then. So let's act like today didn't happen. As you were looking at the universe of getting exposure to AI across, you know, a number of different, let's call it just ancillary industries, but or straight out of Broadcom, or straight out of, you know, some part of the legacy players we know about. Where are you coming into today before this news?
Look, Tim, I think you're looking at not just Broadcom, but what I believe is sort of the second, third derivatives. I think this is bullish for software. I think when you look at names like Salesforce.com, Mongo, of course, names like Palantir and others, because as the data centers get built, it's skating to where the puck's going. Where are the use cases? That's really what the key is going to be over the next 2, 3, 4 quarters. And I think this is bullish for software, because data centers, they get built out, the use cases are going to be software driven.
Dan Ives goes all in on Nvidia as something monumental is underway, a revelation that promises to reshape the very fabric of technological advancements as we know it. President Donald Trump, alongside tech giants Oracle, SoftBank Group, and OpenAI, has unveiled an audacious $500 billion venture named Stargate. This initiative aims not only to bolster AI capabilities, but to construct colossal data centers that stand as modern marvels of engineering. Yet, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Welcome back, everyone, to Investocracy.
The use cases aren't clear right now. I mean, are we going to be at a point where we have the data centers in place, but the use cases, that part of the equation hasn't exactly caught up?
Yeah, I think right now it's starting to catch. I mean, I think we saw it with Benioff and Salesforce. We've seen it with ServiceNow, Palantir, and now the use cases are really going to start to explode. Because these companies, when you talk about all the AI CapEx, it's about the multiplier. For every dollar spent on an Nvidia chip, there's an $8 to $10 multiplier across the rest of tech. That's bullish for all these data center players, bullish for software, and that's going to really be the focus going into earnings season in terms of playing out these sort of next derivatives of AI.
Yeah, Dan, I went sort of AI adjacent. I looked at Dell, and I'm like, you know what? On the margins, it's got to be good for that stock, especially given the fact that it has sold off significantly since that huge move we saw, I think it was the fall of last year.
Yeah, I think Dell has gotten overly hit. I think when you think about ones that are going to play, of course, it's Oracle, but names like Dell, you could argue names like Cisco and others are going to be beneficiaries here, because what you're seeing over the last 24 hours from Trump, I mean, it's a green light from an innovation perspective. And that's not just going to be some of the data center players, it's all the U.S. tech players. I mean, everyone's going to try to get in on this, massive spending wave. This is just the beginning, and I think Dell clearly will be a beneficiary there.
As the news reverberates globally, the scale of the Stargate project becomes even more staggering. With construction already underway on 10 massive data centers in Texas, each rivaling 7 NFL fields in size, the plan doesn't just stop there. Oracle's Ellison asserts that the project's scope will expand significantly, with facilities mushrooming beyond Abilene. While the specifics remain somewhat nebulous, what's certain is the grandiosity and the transformative potential of this venture. SoftBank's Masayoshi Son envisions a future where Stargate imminently taps into an initial $100 million, scaling rapidly to an eye-watering $500 billion investment by the culmination of Trump's term. But before going on with the video, are you into cryptocurrency? If so, check out our second channel, Investocracy Crypto. We bring you breaking news, expert analysis, and the latest trends in the fast-moving world of digital assets. Whether you're a seasoned crypto investor or just curious about the future of finance, we've got something for you. Click the link in the description to subscribe to Investocracy Crypto now. Don't miss out and stay ahead of the game. Now, let's get back to the video.
Our next guest was at that event, the CES in Las Vegas, and he describes it more like a rock concert than a tech CEO speech. Dan Ives is Wedbush Securities analyst, of course, joins us now. Has a buy on Nvidia, price target's 200. Good morning, Dan. Let's talk robotics and autonomous technology. You say in your talking points or your review of the speech, that alone represents another $1 trillion of incremental market opportunity that NVIDIA can now tap into over the coming years. How do you get to that number, and how do you derive the value you are for NVIDIA from it?
Yeah, I mean, look, to me, I think Jensen laid out the strategic vision for the coming years. When we look at robotics, autonomous, I mean, I believe ultimately those are going to be some of the biggest use cases of AI. And I think what you saw from NVIDIA last night is they're not just sort of going to be a provider. They're going to play a huge role in this sort of vision. And obviously, Tesla on the autonomous side continues to be front and center. I think this is the next step. I think this is a snapshot of the future. And you look at it incrementally, you go out the next few years, I think Street's underestimating growth by 25, 30%, which is why I think not just $4 trillion, you could be looking at a $5 trillion market cap.
Underestimating growth by 30%. What is it? Is it robotics? What's being underestimated, so to speak, in terms of the growth for this company?
I think one, it's Blackwell, just overall from a demand perspective. We think 15-1 demand to supply in terms of what we see. I think when you look at robotics and autonomous, given the market opportunity, that could ultimately be 15-20% of what I view as disruptive technology. I mean, that could be an incremental 20-25% just to the top line over the next, call it 2-3 years. I think that to me was the sort of watershed moment last night. It's Jensen laying out NVIDIA. It's not just about Blackwell chips, the new oil gold. It's about where this is all going. And we believe autonomous and robotics, that's a huge part of the fourth industrial revolution.
Right. So what does a ChatGPT moment in robotics look like then, Dan? What does that mean?
I think physical AI. I mean, we've talked about from Robotaxi Day in October. I think we're going to be looking next 2-3 years. Robotics is not just going to be from CES. It's going to be real. And I think it's something that's going to play out in factories. It's going to play out in consumers and households. And I think a year from now, we start to go more advanced prototypes to something that's going to become a reality. And I think that's the key here, is that we are still in the early days of the AI revolution. And there's only really one player. I mean, it's NVIDIA's world. Everyone else is paying rent. That was a flex the muscles moment from The Godfather last night.
What about what I was just talking about, Dan, which is higher yields and the fact that all those stocks are down today? I know you're excited about the fundamentals and the innovation here, but does it make you question valuations when we are seeing a rate move like this on some of those ideas?
Yeah. No, look, and that's the push and pull, and I get it. But my view, Sarah, is that we have $2 trillion of AI capex next 3 years. And even when you look at tech, look at Microsoft just going to 80, from 44, basically doubling their capex. You look at numbers, you could say valuation, but I think it goes back to, I think earnings and ultimately top-line growth for tech is being massively underestimated into the next year or two, and that's where the growth is. This revolution is not going to be stopped in a 10, 20 bit move on the 10.
With the AI realm's voracious appetite for power, Trump's suggestion of on-site electricity generation underscores the forward-thinking approach of this initiative. Moreover, Nvidia, known for pioneering AI processing chips, is positioned to play a critical role as Stargate's esteemed technology partner. This relationship, whether a partnership or a premium supplier dynamic, foreshadows substantial revenue influx for Nvidia as its GPUs become foundational to Stargate's operations. But before going any further, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make, so if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
All right, let's start off. You're going to actually give us the word of the day today. What is it and why?
Fire, because I think this is a tech market that's going to be on fire, not just for going into the end of the year this week, but what I believe right now, this AI revolution, it's hitting its next phase. And I think this is just still the start of a fourth industrial revolution.
All right, still the start, but you always say it's 9 o'clock. It's got to be 9:30.
No, I actually said it's 9:30 to 10 p.m. in the AI party. That goes to 4 a.m.
All right, so you have a number of upgrades in the space, specifically in the software space when it comes to AI. One of them is Snowflake. The other one's actually Elastic. We've been fortunate enough to have the CEO on the show. Kind of a broad-based play. They do cloud, they do security as well. Why these two names?
Look, I think, and we've talked about a lot here on the show, now the second derivative, the software piece of AI is here. I think in 2025, that's going to be the key. You look at Elastic, Snowflake, names like MongoDB, they're the ones now that follow names like Palantir in terms of the software, the use cases. I believe the software AI age is now here. 2025, that's going to be front and center. That's why we upgrade those names.
All right, so both of those names have recently had earnings, actually. We're going to show the charts. Big jump. Snowflake's up over 25% since earnings. Elastic's up over 20% since earnings. What's going to push them even higher? I mean, they've had big spikes post-earnings. What else is going to happen that's going to be another catalyst?
That's just the appetizer in terms of where I believe these stocks are going. Because now the consumption model, what's happening across enterprise AI, obviously it starts with Godfather of AI, Jensen, Nvidia. But now you look at the consumption piece, these LLM models, what you're going to start to see, I believe earnings and overall growth is being underestimated potentially by 15, 20% over the next few years. That's why you look at names like Snowflake, Elastic, Mongo. It all starts, obviously, with Messi of AI, Palantir, but this software phase is here, and it's just the beginning.
All right. So how does the idea of bond yields play a part of this? I want to ask you, probably back in 2022, we were talking a lot about bond yields. We're talking about the stronger dollar. In fact, right now, the dollar's even higher than it was back in June of 2022 when Microsoft warned, when Salesforce warned. How did those things play a factor in this tech trade?
Well, look, on currency, clearly, that's been, that could be a headwind. I think the difference now is that a lot of that's factored into guidance. Now, we got to see if that continues in terms of dollar strength. But we're in a much different situation today relative to, I think, what we're seeing from a demand perspective. That tightening environment that really actually was a big hurdle in terms of software, we're seeing the opposite of it because of where this AI revolution plays. So I think even though you could have some currency headwinds, it is not getting in the way of what I believe is we're going to be talking about NASDAQ 20,000. And I believe in the next 2 years, NASDAQ 25,000 is something that we'll be talking about.
The Stargate project represents a dramatic leap into the AI-driven future, and with Nvidia being at the core as a technological linchpin, the time seems ripe for investors to take notice of this synergy. Nvidia's market stance is primed for substantial uplift, riding the momentum of what promises to be the grandest AI infrastructure endeavor known to date. One can't help but ponder, however, how far will this take the Nvidia stock, and are we ready for it? Finally, if you would like to know what companies like Nvidia have been up to these past few days, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen. See you there.